Well, welcome. It's Dr. Mario Gaming here. I have not done a commentary video much at all. I don't think I've done one. Anyway, this is Celeste. It is a fan-freaking-tastic 2018 2D platformer about a woman whose name is not Celeste. It is Madeline. Yeah, this game pulled a bit of a Legend of Zelda in that regard. But basically, I'll just sort of, in an introductory sort of sense, I'll just try and like run over the concept of what this video is. It's basically just like, in the game there's, I think, 25 levels. I could be wrong about that number, but I think it's something like 25. And I think it's once you pass a certain milestone in the game, these optional challenges become available called golden strawberries. That's what Madeline has got following her there. There's like this big shiny golden strawberry. It's even got a little spinning crown on its head, which I find quite amusing. Basically, the idea is, once those golden strawberries appear, you have to take it from the beginning of the level to the end of the level. And you have to do, in order to do that, you have to not die once. You have to do a deathless run of the whole level. It's a bit of an upgrade from the regular red strawberries, because those are like just regular vanilla collectibles that are, well, actually they're not vanilla, they're strawberry, but you get the idea. They're sort of sprinkled throughout the level that you can just collect them. They're much easier to collect, and you know, they're something that most people play this game actually, who don't hate themselves, actually bother doing. The golden strawberries are a very, very difficult challenge, in case that isn't obvious, and they're really fun and satisfying to go for. There's a golden strawberry for every level, and for the first like 24 levels, I don't think there was any of them that took me longer than 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks was the most amount of time any of them took me, because while they are definitely difficult, they're very manageable with practice. But this level here is Farewell. It's the DLC level that I think this didn't get released until 2019, so it was about a year after the game came out, roughly. And this level is like, it's like 3 times as long as any other level, and it's also much harder. So the golden strawberry on this level is sort of a whole new level of ridiculous. Also, the golden strawberries in this game are not even required at all to 100% the game. Like, the game has a sort of loose 100% criteria in that, like, you know, you collect all the crystal hearts, all the tapes, all the all the red strawberries. But if you do that, like, that's 100% in the game. And then there's the golden strawberries, which sort of, the game almost goes out of its way to, like, make it clear just how optional these things are, because there's no achievements tied to them, for one thing. And the other thing is that, like, if there's 25 red strawberries in any given level, for example, it will treat the golden strawberry like it's a 26th one, and it'll say 26 out of 25. So it, you know, the game's got these like little ways of communicating to you, like, hey guys, you don't have to go for these, you know, unless you really have no life. Just, you know, go for the red strawberries and 100% the game normally and leave it at that. That's basically what this is. It's a challenge run that's sort of imposed by the game itself in a very gentle kind of way. I'm really grateful that this game doesn't impose the golden strawberries as like part of 100%, because I think most people probably would not get as much joy out of this sort of thing as someone like me. But, you know, for those who do, it's a really satisfying challenge, and I recommend it. So Farewell as a level is divided into a bunch of different chapters. The one that we're on right now is Remembered, I think that's the name of it. And I think I could say with a fair amount of confidence that most people who do this challenge tend to find that everything up to this point and a little bit beyond, specifically up until the next chapter, which is known as Event Horizon, up until that point, after you've been practicing for like a few weeks especially, the whole thing up until this point becomes pretty easy. You don't find yourself dying much on here because the strategies are relatively consistent. But it's once you start to get to Event Horizon, and especially the one after that, Determination. Determination, in my opinion, is the hardest. Those 2 chapters in particular are just ball busters. They are full of precise as hell 2D platforming that just requires a lot of frame-perfect input, and it's just pretty insane. But ironically, after that, I find that the challenge gets easier after that. So you get to Stubbornness after that, and then Reconciliation, and then Farewell, I think, is the last segment. And all of those, I reckon, are easier than Determination and Event Horizon. So the difficulty of the challenge kind of just goes, it spikes a lot up at about the halfway point, and then it sort of goes down a little bit after that, although not a lot, because the parts after that are still hard. They're just not as hard as Event Horizon and Determination. But then everything before Event Horizon is pretty low on the difficulty scale, in my opinion. So It does have a bit of an all-over-the-place difficulty, but, you know, some of these screens... In fact, I would say Remembered is actually one of the easiest sections, though the one here right now. It's all going to depend on individual opinion, of course, because there are plenty of screens that, like, most people don't have much of a problem with, which for some reason I just struggled so much with. This one in particular that you can see here is actually one of them, because this screen, it's part of a skip that you can do that saves minutes on your run, so very much worth doing. But there's a sort of precise down-up movement that you have to do with the D-pad or analog stick, depending which you choose to use, to pull it off. And for the longest time, I reckon up until about 2 days before I completed the challenge successfully, I had been stubbornly sticking to using the D-pad because I completely forgot that using the analog stick was an option. And then as soon as I started using the analog stick, I suddenly had no problem with it. So needless to say, that was a bit of a bittersweet realization because, you know, who knows how earlier I could have done it or how much less time it might have taken me if I had already known that earlier, but oh well. So this is the beginning of Event Horizon here. This is where it gets real. Like I said, everything before this point was tame compared to what comes after this point. I think I must have been scratching an itch here or something because just sort of idle. I tend to get pretty itchy when I game. I'm not sure if you guys have that, but yeah, this is the point. So that internet cafe is like a tutorial bit, which basically they teach you how to wave dash, which is, yeah, a whole new mechanic that at every point prior to this had not expected you to be able to do. You can do it. You could have done it at any time. It was built into the game, but they only teach you specifically how to do it now. It does take a lot of practice to be able to do that consistently. However, I have to say, I find wall bouncing ever so slightly harder. So I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but that was genuinely my experience. This pink crystal here in particular, getting that pink crystal, I messed that up so many times. Oh my god. Like, this is just the section where I'm just going to be like looking at this footage and just getting like PTSD flashbacks and just like fuming, thinking of like the times where like thousands of times probably where I died in this section. I actually, as you could see from the beginning of the video, I literally died more than 11,000 times attempting this challenge. Although, in my defense, 2,000 of those were when I was originally like doing this level back in like early 2023, I think. Just trying to do it, period, without doing the golden. So, and then the remaining 9,000 deaths were when I was doing the golden. So, yeah, there you go. This strat here actually is a lot safer than it looks. It looks really risky, but the hitboxes for the crystals, well, not crystals, those spikes rather. They look like crystals to me, so I want to call them crystals. But yeah, the hitboxes for those are actually incredibly generous, surprisingly. So that's really cool. This room also gave me a lot of trouble because, I don't know, that wall bounce, the one right there, man, that one just kept getting me. But yeah, I want to know if it's just me who finds wall bounces harder than wave dashing. Let me know in the comments if you guys have experience, because I'm very curious. Anyway, fun little story in relation to this challenge, actually. I was noticing that my PS5 controller that I was using, because I'm playing this on my PC with a PS5 controller, the PS5 controller that I was using was having a lot of problems with the D-pad. And I say a lot of problems, what I mean by that is like not many at all. It was like a very subtle kind of thing where like I would press right on the D-pad and it would register as diagonal upright, for example. And that happened more times the longer I went on. And I initially thought it was just my fingers slipping, like it was just my skill at the game deteriorating, but it turned out it was actually the controller and its wear and tear, because I got a new shiny red PS5 controller and it barely happened at all with that thing. Which obviously had everything to do with the shiny redness and nothing to do with the quality of the D-pad. But yeah, I actually found, I don't think we've gotten up to one of these sections yet, but there are some sections that require you to use like a golden feather. There it is, right there, the golden feather. And I did find the analog stick on, you know, any controller to be significantly better for navigating those sections, because with the D-pad you can only go in 8 directions, whereas in the analog stick you can go in pretty much as many directions as feels right. But yeah, this here was the end of Event Horizon, yeah, that's right, and this is the beginning of Determination, which I consider to be the hardest chapter in the game. And yeah, this is, when I say the golden feather sections, this is what I'm talking about, this whole thing where you gotta navigate yourself. It's not really super difficult, but I think what really got me was, I mean, it is difficult, but what got me in particular was that it's a bit of a change from the usual, like you have to shift genres mid-level almost, mid-screen, because like, one is, maybe not genres, maybe that's the wrong word, but it's a type of gameplay, you know, like 1 minute you're platforming and then the next minute you're navigating the golden feather section, and it feels, it's very different physics, and so you have to be able to quickly switch from one to the other, and that's something that I personally struggled with quite a bit. So there's a skip in the game that you can do, I think it's called the dash trigger skip or something like that, or some people call it the oil skip. I didn't do it for this run because I sort of have a bit of an opposition to using glitches when I'm playing games. I generally try not to do stuff like that. There was a skip that I did do in this video, but it's not a glitch. It is intended by the creators, and so I didn't mind doing it. I sort of justify that to myself. But yeah, I think it involves like something about the timing of skipping a cutscene early in the level or something like that. But also this screen right here, hardest screen in the challenge. There's just so many things that can go wrong, and most of them did go wrong for me hundreds of times. So yeah, that room became a rage room for me quite quickly, and it never really stopped being that. I don't think there was ever really a point where I got really good at that room. That, you know, I became sort of permanently stuck on that room, and I was never really able to overcome that. Never had too much trouble with this one. This one's alright once you get the rhythm of it. The one after this, yeah, this one here. This one gave me a lot of trouble because there's a golden feather section at the end, which, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I was stubbornly sticking to the D-pad for those sections, even though I should have been using an analog stick. And so if you use an analog stick like I did here, it suddenly becomes very easy. So figure that one out. In this room, there is a specific route that you can take, which makes this room a total non-issue, in my opinion. Because when I was starting out doing this room, I was just playing around. And yeah, I found this strat on YouTube. I can't remember exactly what video it was from, but I did find that strat on YouTube, and it made the room so much easier. Now this room right here, second hardest room in the challenge. This part here, not too bad. It's this bit coming up here. This bit, you got to do this, and this, and this, and this whole thing, and it's just the timing of it. There's just a whole bunch of bits in a row that have only like 3 or 4 frames of error each, and if you mess it up at all, you die and have to redo the whole challenge. And this is, you know, about halfway into the challenge, maybe a bit more, so you know, it's a big deal if that happens. You've lost a lot of progress if you die there, and not easy. This room here, I would say this one for me was the 4th hardest, and the one after this was the 3rd hardest. Yeah, so the top 4 hardest rooms for me are all in the same chapter. So just, you know, to give you some perspective as to why I consider Determination to be the hardest chapter, that's why. And this room, yeah, you just got to practice the cycles, because once you get the cycle right, and actually I do prefer using the D-pad for this particular golden feather section because I found I had more precision control over it. Yeah, as you can see, it's like, you really got to get the cycle right. If you're a few frames off, you're dead. But yeah, I did 3rd hardest room, as I said, but those other 2 rooms that I mentioned were definitely harder. And now we're up to Stubbornness. So it was always at this point in the run where if I made it this far, my heart rate would just skyrocket. This was, you know, alright, you know, I've made it past Determination. That's the hardest part. Like I said before, everything from Stubbornness onwards is not as bad as Determination. I quite like the beat blocks though. This is pretty cool. It reminds me a bit of Super Mario Galaxy. Or was it? Oh, it was Galaxy 2, that's right. Beat Block Galaxy. Yeah, that was one of my favourites, that one. I've always enjoyed games that sort of have that rhythmic element to them, even if it's not obviously strictly rhythm games, but even just like things like this or Galaxy 2 and that sort of thing. I've always had a soft spot for that kind of thing. Donkey Kong Country Returns did it too in one stage. That was a great game. Just like this one level that was like music based, like Music Madness I think it might have been called, something along those lines. This screen is like odd because it's extremely easy in the middle of like a generally not easy section. Like, even though I did say before that Stubbornness is easier than Determination, it's still not, you know, really easy. It's not piss easy. This screen also I didn't find to be too difficult. It's just once you get the timing, you pretty much get it for good. So I think it looks harder than it is, this one. This screen, on the other hand, this one gave me quite a bit of trouble. I must have had to pause to catch my breath here, I reckon. Just like, whoo. Inner peace, Zen mind, or whatever. I also really appreciated the chillness of this music here. It's pretty ambient, because not only because it sounds cool, but also because it was really helpful for like my nerves. Because when you get up to this point in the stage, you know, your heart rate rises. Yeah, here we are. We're up to Reconciliation now. The effectively the final chapter. I mean, there is technically a chapter after this called Farewell, which is the same as the name of the level, so that's totally not confusing at all. But it literally just comprises of one screen, so I don't really know why it gets a chapter to itself. Like, in my mind, mentally, I still think of it as being part of Reconciliation, because I think of Reconciliation as being the final section, because it effectively is. There is a final section, like a final bit after Reconciliation and that quote-unquote farewell bit, which is a room that only exists if you're doing the golden. So if you're just practicing, or if you're just playing the stage normally, you don't get access to that room. But it's only when you're doing the golden that there's a certain room at the very end that you have to get through in order to actually get the golden. And what sucks about that is that you can't practice it. You know, you have to be doing the only way to access that room and be able to play that room at all is if you have successfully made it through the main level in a golden run. So, pretty evil, I have to say, but in their defense, it's not a super hard screen, so there's that. A lot of pretty colors in this stage. It's a very visually pleasing level. There's all this random stuff in the background as well. Well, there's this one point where there's like a car with detached wheels, and like, why is it there? Well, why not? That's the more pertinent question. But yeah, this whole section is, generally speaking, not too difficult. This screen sometimes gets me, but overall, yeah, man, it's, you know, Reconciliation is not too bad, all things considered. Once you've practiced them anyway. You know, that's the big asterisk there, because if it's your first time playing this through the stage, then, like, most screens are hard. But yeah, you know, the screens that I've been talking about in this video that I deem to be difficult are, like, when I say difficult in the context of this video, I effectively mean difficult to do over and over consistently. The screens that involve some sort of cycle tend to be the hardest, and I emphasize tend to because a lot of them were surprisingly not that bad. Like, even the final Room of Determination, this one here, is, like, I had not as much trouble with that screen as I originally thought I would when I was practicing. When I was practicing that room, I was like, shit, this is going to be the one that gives me the most trouble, but it didn't. It was fine. I mean, it did give me trouble, but, like, it was probably not even in the top 10 in terms of difficulty. Did I mention I really love Celeste? Man, this is just the tightest, or some of the tightest gameplay I've ever seen in a platformer, and it's got a beautiful story about, you know, overcoming your inner demons and coming to terms with your struggles and stuff like that. I won't spoil it, but because I'm skipping all the cutscenes in this, so this is a spoiler-free video. But you know, I'm actually really not much of a story guy, generally speaking, when it comes to video games, but this game's story really captured me. Very relatable, you know, very personable. I mean, as much as I love things like Final Fantasy and Legend of Zelda, I do find that the stories in those are more like an escapist kind of thing, with more fantastical themes and out there stuff happening that would never happen in the real world. And yes, that happens in this game too, but there's more of a focus on the part of it that we can all sort of relate to. And I just, I really enjoy that kind of thing in video games. Life is Strange was a good example of that. That's about 10 years old now, that game, but, you know, slice of life kind of thing. I feel like the next screen coming up after this one is the hardest screen in Reconciliation specifically, which is to say, the final section. Because, you know, you'll see why. It's pretty visually obvious, right? It's a golden feather section, and I have a vendetta against those, but even still, you know, you got to go through those tiny gaps in that electric stuff, and there is leeway. Like, you know, as you can see, that one right there, I kind of messed up, but it was still good enough. So there is, as I say, the hitboxes in this game are kind of generous. But it reminds me a bit of Battletoads, that screen. I love that game. Level 7 in particular, the one with where you're in those ships, kind of similar to the turbo tunnel, but it's more of a void, kind of similar to what you're seeing here actually. And you got to make your way through those really tiny electric gaps. It was very similar to this. I wonder if there was some inspiration there. This game definitely took some inspiration from some of those hard as nails NES platformers, so it wouldn't surprise me if there was. But yeah, once you get it up to here, that's it. This is the final screen of the challenge, barring that golden only room I mentioned earlier. So Yeah. It's when I made it up to this screen, I was sort of like literally shaking. It's like, oh god, please don't die, please don't die. I made it up to, there were 2 runs where I made it up to this room and died, actually. So I was about as frustrated as you can imagine. One of them I wasn't. The first time it happened, I was like, you know what, I don't care that I died because I've proven that I can make it that far, and that's a massive step forward regardless. The second time I was a lot more peeved. Because it was like, god damn it, you know, that was, the first one was the practice one, this should have been it. And so I had a moment. But a lot of the, I like this bit coming up here in particular, kind of reminds me of the wind sections in Donkey Kong Country 2. Perhaps this bit here isn't the best example, it's more like, yeah, here when you're trying to dodge the moving things with the wind and you're trying to, yeah, those who have played it will know what I'm talking about. But I really enjoy these bits, actually. They're, it's all about the timing and how long you hold the buttons for and everything, and it's very precise, and I like it. It's tight gameplay. And this bit here is like, I really like how they actually show you the barriers that you can't cross. In regards to the fish, you can see the dots. That's very, intelligent of the devs to put that in there. And yeah, from here onwards, the rest of this screen is pretty free, I'd say. There's not too much that can go wrong. There's always the possibility of hitting the fish at the wrong angle. That has been known to get me sometimes, but in this section, it doesn't really happen. Even these trampolines there are pretty easy. I'm not sure that I've ever died there, actually. This bit I died on a few times because I would sometimes make the mistake of, with this fish here, I would sometimes make the mistake of holding right a bit too soon, which sends you flying straight into the electricity, so that's an easy mistake to make, that one, but... Oh man, as soon as this happened, I was like screaming. It was originally my intention to do live commentary, but I had done it so many times and died so many times that I ended up just not talking at all for the majority of the recording until the very end where I started being all dramatic. So, by and large, that would have been a very boring video as far as commentary goes. I'm aware that most of my videos would fall into that category by virtue of being commentary-less, but with the other videos, that's kind of the point, whereas this one, it's not. So, the intention. Yeah, this is that final screen. And as you can see, I'm just sort of sitting here getting my bearings because this is the second time I had ever played this screen. Yeah, I did actually get up to this screen and die once, and I was devastated. It's, like I said, not too hard of a screen, all things considered. I had to spend some time here just getting, like, to grips with the situation that I was in, because I knew that if I died, I was going to scream, and if I completed it successfully, I was also going to scream, so there was going to be screaming in either situation. But look, this bit here, right here, is really not that bad. You just got to, the only section of this screen that really could be considered hard at all is the final bit, and that was the bit that I died on that one time, because I mistimed a button press. Yeah, but this bit's not too bad. You just got to jump off the fish. And I was really scared, which is why I hesitated a whole bunch here, but got there in the end. Oh yeah, this, I remember this pause. My girlfriend called me and I had to decline the call. I felt bad, but I knew that if I took the call, it was gonna like disturb my concentration and I was gonna die. So that's that bit done. That jump's not hard. It's these two next jumps coming up after here, which are the ones that I originally died on. And I mean, looking at this gameplay, that doesn't look that hard. Like, I did them no problem here, so I don't know, man. I must have... But you can see there I was kind of close to the left spike, so, you know. It's not piss easy, but it is easy. As far as this level goes, especially. And there you go. Man, I don't think I can remember the last time I was as happy as when I did this thing, man. The most euphoric feeling. What's that? You want to see my live facecam reaction? Oh my god! No f***ing way! Oh my god! Ah! Oh my god, I did it! Well, this video has been a bit of an experiment, so to speak. I usually don't do commentary with videos, but I did it today. I may or may not do something like this again in the future, but it just really depends on whether or not it suits the situation. I'm more likely to do commentary for shorter videos and shorter gameplay videos as opposed to longer ones, because if I was doing a whole playthrough of something like Majora's Mask or whatever, there is no way I'd be able to consistently commentate over that. I would run out of stuff to say super quickly. But I figured with a 25-minute long gameplay video, it's just one level, I figured I could get away with it. So here we are. What can I say? If you have something you want to say to me, leave a comment. If you like the video, like it. If you dislike the video, dislike it. And if you want to subscribe, you want to see more of this stuff, then subscribe. Thank you for watching. Peace.